Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. We are back here, joined once again by Dr. Fred Petito from Attain Leadership, and he's here joining us live today on the podcast and Zoomcast. Welcome back. How are you?
Great. Thanks, Jill. How are you?
I'm doing well. He's a regular here. We're excited to have him back.
I know.
Yeah, for new timers, tell us a little bit about what it is you do, and let's establish, how we can reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Fred Petito. I'm an executive and leadership development coach, and our website is attainleadership.com. You could reach me at fred@attainleadership.com email, and you can find me on LinkedIn at Fred Petito, or Attain Leadership on LinkedIn. So that's the best way to reach out.
Beautiful. And for today, we're talking a little bit about executive presence, what exactly it is and how to get it. What brought you what brought this in particular for the topic front today?
Yeah, absolutely. So executive presence is it's one of those things that it's a little abstract. It's a little and maybe I wouldn't say ambiguous, but it's kind of one of those things you know it when you see it, and maybe you know it when you don't see it, right? So there's definitely I would say it's more of a kind of an art form than I would say a science. Like there's no science executive presence, so it makes it difficult to for people who may not be a natural at having that presence to cultivate it and develop it. So it's an interesting topic. I know it's something that a lot of people sometimes maybe feel like they struggle with. And I think one of the big things I'd say about it is people tend to confuse it with charisma. And I think that kind of it does people a disservice. I think there's things that people can do to develop their executive presence that doesn't require them to be this charismatic, superhero.
In your job, in what you do, clearly you're working with executives, and it's important that they have this about them because, wouldn't you say if there's no presence, there's no respect, there's no follow, there's no good you need a team leader, right, to make it all
Right.
work. So
Exactly.
yeah, why is it more important than ever to establish this type of presence? And we're going to get to, the hows and whys and hopefully some character traits on how to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's three big reasons why executive presence, which it's always been a critical feature for executives and leaders to have. But I think even now it's more important, right? I think there's three big reasons. The first is there's just so much change and competing demands in organizations between changing work attitudes, cross-generational expectations, DE&I and ESG initiatives, which are super important and really positive. But these put a lot of competing demands on leaders and executives, and many times there's ambiguity, or these are instant leadership challenges of the first instance, if you will. So there's no simple answers, right? Many times there's no easy path forward. So that executive presence is really important, and it's a little bit of that kind of that it factor that people need to develop. The second big thing is that organizations historically have been very hierarchical, top down, command and control, and influence or presence, if you will, was kind of inherent with the position. It was positional. If your boss said something, you did it. It was a different time and place and cultural context. So that's changed, right? Now organizations are less hierarchical. It's almost what they call the system of self-management, this holacracy, if you will, where people their leadership of teams is more dynamic and requires a different skill set and approach, if you will. And I think the third piece is kind of the other side of the coin. The second piece is that as teams become more distributed and decentralized because of hybrid work, the traditional sources of authority, positional, top down, whatever, have become very weakened, if you will. And so for leaders to be effective in this type of kind of environment, they need to influence people by aligning these distributed teams, building trust, empowering, and giving people kind of almost giving up some of their authority so people could be more effective in this distributed setup. So it's a whole kind of new world out there, and so the importance of um, having presence has been elevated. It's a higher stakes game for leaders today.
And I mean, just our culture in general, right? With it's from what I'm hearing, I don't work an executive position. I don't work in I work here doing podcasts, right, as a broadcaster and television. But what I'm hearing from people that I know in business is that it's harder to get a more qualified candidate. The younger generation, there's something different about them. I mean, do you also work with that because we need to train our young to do the right job, be more productive, but we're finding a lot of different character traits in the younger generation. Do
Yeah,
you agree? But can we still
yeah,
get leaders from them? Can we still teach them?
yeah. I think the expectations of this generation, and is different. And again, I think that there was this implicit kind of influence or presence that came from your position. And I remember, I've worked in many different companies as a consultant, as a marketing professional. There was a much more sense of formality, um, and that sense of formality and that sense of implied presence or intrinsic presence because of your position has been weakened significantly. And there's some generational, and there's some kind of organizational reasons for that. So and I do think that um, people can learn how to navigate this environment, whether you're senior, experienced, or new and maybe not so experienced. So I do think you certainly can develop it, and that's kind of what we do. One of the things we do at Attain Leadership.
Perfect. All right. So let's talk more about some character traits and what makes a leader and what type of traits really can define someone in this position. Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, like I said before, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's abstract, but I don't think there's a, one size fits all approach
Hmm.
to enhancing your executive presence. But I like to think of the five C's, right?
Yeah.
I think the five C's are a simple way of thinking about what makes somebody have presence. It's composure, connection, confidence, credibility, and character, right? So the composure it starts with self-awareness, and it's the ability to present yourself in kind of a disciplined and but yet engaging manner. And that's I shift from a lot of traditional or maybe more traditional leadership styles, which were hey, I'm your boss. I want you to do something, and you don't kind of have a dialogue about it. You do it right now.
Hmm.
There's a much higher expectation of the level of uh, engagement between a boss and somebody on their team. So that supervisor, that leader now is to bring a much I think more elevated sense of emotional maturity and emotional regulation, if you will, to the situation, right? To gain the respect of their team. So that's the first one, right? That composure piece. The second piece is all about, it's kind of the next step, if you will, is connection. Um, you need to have the interpersonal skills that to encourage commitment, to encourage a cause, a following. And so again, these are relational skills that not positional things, are based on your ability to foster a relationship, teamwork, and engage people in a way that makes them feel like they're part of something bigger, right? So there's a piece to that that's really important. The third piece is confidence, and this kind of goes to I think a traditional definition of what it means to be have presence, right? You need to be self-assured. You need to exert both boldness and composure, whether you're leading a meeting, conducting a presentation, interacting with team members. That confidence. It's many times. I think the way humans interact and the way humans engage with others, oftentimes it's not what is said, but how it's said
Hmm.
that motivates or inspires people. So these are this confidence factor is a big piece of a presence. So it could be nonverbal, it could be verbal, it could be the way you show up in a meeting, obviously attire. Those are all important things. So the fourth C is all about credibility, right? And that this comes to your knowledge, your skill. It's hard to have presence and be influential if you don't have a credible foundation for the direction you're giving people, right? So and so credibility is really important. Without credibility, you could have all these other qualities, but if you don't know what you're doing, it's not gonna get you anywhere. And the final C, character. This kind of is really important because it goes to the inner traits and values of the leader. And people pick up on these things very quickly. And if the leader has a firm belief in themselves, their vision, what they're working towards, they have a kind of an emotional intelligence about them. They're going to, and also a sense of morality and ethics about the kind of work they do. They're going to have more presence. They're going to have more influence. So again, it's these five C's of composure, connection, confidence, credibility, and character. And there are others, of course, but I believe that these are the five kind of foundational principles that are skills or traits or attributes, whatever you want to call them, that make someone influential.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What else did you want to share about these types of executive presence and how we get there? And also, I mean, are some people innately born with them?
I think that
Were
some
you?
people,
Were you?
again, I don't. I think I am probably on a scale somewhere in the middle. I don't think some people have a, a greater ability to have presence than others. Again, I think that there's traditional, like, what is presence, right? And what is influence, and people have different styles, and it's a very subjective concept. So I think some people, again, I think charisma is important, but I think it's the wrong way to think about presence. I
Hmm.
don't think it's about I think there are things that you could do and develop that means that people who may be introverted or shy, who may not have charisma as traditionally understood, can certainly have executive presence. So it's not just the person with the loudest voice or the most assertive or aggressive person, and it's going to have presence, right? So presence is kind of, could be hard to develop, right? You're just not born with these qualities. There's a subjective quality to it. And some people have um, personality traits that, like I talked about, introversion or shyness, that may make it more difficult or require more effort to develop that presence. And they certainly can, right? It's important that people believe that they can develop it, they can enhance their presence. Um, Another thing is there's cultural differences around um, what is presence, right? And what is influence, and some cultures have a um, different approach, or different, so what might be considered authoritative and charismatic in one culture may be perceived as overbearing, or you know uh, too much command and control in another, right? So you need to be able to navigate these cultural nuances um, so this is like another layer of complexity. And again, I would go back to the fact that I cultivating executive presence, like, there is no playbook. It's what works for you, what works for the situation, what works for the context. But there are things that I think if you're hitting on those 5 C's we talked about, you are going to have hopefully have a higher sense of presence than others that who are not. And by the way, those 5 C's are really kind of, they're pretty foundational to any being successful in any kind of group or team dynamic, right? You need to have character, you need to be credible, you need to have confidence, you need to be able to connect with people. So these are all, you know, emotionally intelligent skill sets that anybody needs to bring to a to a group setting or a social setting or an organizational setting.
Got it. All right. What else did you want to share for today and about coaching a client to help them enhance this executive presence?
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, I would talk about. I like to just kind of state that there's no one size fits all, and so every time we work with a client on developing their presence, it's customized, right? Everybody has a different comes at it from a different place. They have a different set of experiences. They have a different kind of nature or character about them, and I would also say that developing something, you can learn a functional skill like, I don't know, whatever that might be, just by kind of, doing it, and there's certain things you need to do, certain things you can't do. So it's a little bit easier to learn how to, do something that's a functional part of your job. This is a much more kind of dynamic, abstract thing. So it takes time. People need to be patient with it. I think one of the best ways to start with this type of coaching engagement is really with assessments, right? Self-assessments are great tools to understand a person's strengths, to identify some weak spots, things that we like to call derailers, right? So what are things that you may have historically done or in the past have done that maybe kind of steered you the wrong way? And what makes it kind of this challenging is that a lot of these behaviors they become habit, right? We were very habitual creatures, right? So you may have a communication style or a body language or just a mannerisms that are working against you, and so those are things that take time. They're behavioral things, they're personality things that take time to kind of unravel and kind of redevelop. Getting feedback is a great place to start also, right? Obviously self-assessment, but getting feedback is a really good area of insight. The second thing is set some clear goals. Like, what do you want to? What does it mean? Like, what does executive presence mean to you? Like, Jill, if we're working together on executive presence, thinking about your environment, what does that mean to you? And what do you think your goals ought to be in this area? So those are things that, instead of just saying, hey, we want to just generally go after executive presence.
Well, I like executives that are kind, understanding, compassionate, warm. Not all are. Everyone has their own techniques, but I find I strive and I thrive better in an environment where someone's just genuinely nice and
Yeah,
compassionate and not I know I've known a lot of leaders in my past and business I've been in that they're more I'm going to use the word cocky, more arrogant, more, and to me that's not a good leader. A leader is someone who can relate, empathize, and to be on your level, and
yeah.
just not everyone's that way though. So but everyone also strives differently. And then also let me ask you this: how do you approach a leader and try to tell him kindly that maybe some of his behavioral things are gestures or being people might get insulted and take that personal, and then how do you that's a
Yeah.
fine line. I'm sure you have plenty of experiences with that.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways to help people, that's basically about helping them increase self-awareness, right? So
Yes.
it's kind of the coach's job not to necessarily tell them what they
Hmm.
might be doing wrong, or what they could improve on, but it's helping them see, through discussion, conversation, dialogue, what they may be currently doing is not optimal.
Yeah.
You talked about, the types of leaders you like and the types you don't like as much. When somebody is does not engage you in the way you just said. They're maybe a little bit, do this, do that, or you know, and they don't do it in kind of a way that makes you feel good. Like, are you going to do a good job? Are you going to feel enriched? Are you going to feel inspired to do great work? Probably not, right? You're going to do it
Hmm.
out of a I have to do this type of a mindset, and we don't do our best work, right? I mean, I think what the definition of a leader is kind of helping people and encouraging people to do great things that they wouldn't otherwise do, right, for the benefit of the organization. So, having somebody who's kinder, a little bit more empowering, and reinforcing, I think
Hmm.
really helps. You know, I think, you know, I think what you were talking about really comes down to emotional intelligence, right? So emotional intelligence has a couple of dimensions to it. The first is understanding kind of how to regulate your emotions, but also understanding how people perceive and react and respond to you. Um, and the second part, another part of emotional intelligence is having the emotional skill to develop really productive relationships with people that
Yeah.
make them feel good about kind of what you're doing as a team. Um, Another feature is authenticity, right? Um, you know, it's so important that executives, if they want to have presence, kind of show up in a way that's real,
Yeah.
right? And there's, when I say authentic, there's like a belief, they believe in what they're doing, and they believe that, I'm not asking you to do something because I don't think it's something that's arbitrary. I want
Hmm.
you to do this because I think it's important to our mission and our vision,
Yeah.
and I want to help you get there. So that authenticity is really important.
Got it.
I think
Got it.
another great strategy, um, and something I've used a lot, is just role modeling, or kind of like channeling others that you think kind of embody all these great qualities of a leader. And it's so funny. I think that um, once one of the great things about coaching is that it helps people kind of reprogram how they think, feel, do, if you will, about
Hmm.
things. And many times, I think also I've seen this before on several occasions where when people start adopting, I think, a leadership style or an executive style, it tends to start to reprogram how they think about that activity, that leadership activity. So, there's this belief that we think, we feel, we do, right? There's this one directional thing. Like, you got to rethink how you do things, change your feelings, and then change your behavior. But many times, if you just start adopting a behavior, a new habit, a new leadership habit that we're talking about here today, and you start getting feedback from your environment, that starts reprogramming how you think and feel about it, and that
Yeah.
reinforces, creates a new positive habit loop, if you will. So I think that's I think that's a great way to think about how to start cultivating and enhancing your presence by creating new skills, right? It's not just about, hey, I need to change the way I think about this. Try it, see what
Yeah.
works. If you get positive feedback, that's gonna change the way you think about it.
Got it. All right. Well, we're just about out of time. Would you mind sharing, wrap it up, and then we'll talk about how we can reach you? Thank you.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think again, I think enhancing executive presence is a very important goal, right? And I think it's an ongoing journey. I don't think that people should feel that it's going to take a couple of weeks. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take a lot of self assessment, self reflection, and working on these skills. But I think that I've seen a lot of people who have elevated their executive presence, executive influence
Yeah.
by working on these different things we talked about. So yeah, it's a very exciting area, an area that we work on a lot, and so yeah, we're always happy to work with people in this area. So we encourage anybody to reach out. Our website is attainleadership.com. My email is fred@attainleadership.com, and our on LinkedIn, Fred Petito and Attain Leadership. So love to hear from
Perfect.
you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time as always. Have a fantastic day and a happy Halloween tomorrow.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.